reserves, the domestic stock will quickly deplete the resident wild animals' food supply. In just a short time, they will eat the food reserves that the wild animals need to live out the rest of the dry season. When the grass is gone, the cattle are moved on, and the game reserve then becomes the goats' domain. Their sheer numbers overwhelm the land as they systematically devour the remaining vegetation. A few species will survive the first season's invasion, but eventually in the drought years, they die a long, lingering death in a game reserve now no more than a sanctified ghetto. A short time ago, herds of animals could be seen here in tens of thousands. Now the park is virtually deserted. Only a few survivors are left, struggling in this depleted world. Once the buffalo roamed here in massive herds. Now only a solitary survivor can be found, and it tries to live off what the cattle overlooked. Small groups of gazelle roam the park in an effort to scavenge what the goats have left behind. The large herds of elephants have now been reduced to just a few small groups. The only ones unaffected by the depleted environment are the tourists. They continue to arrive in droves.
What a sight.
What a sight.
Beautiful.
Oh, wow. I can't believe it.
Flicking their tails. Look at that. Definitely, yes. There's a honeymoon set up.
A hungry mother and her young calf approach the human entourage in the hope of being fed. Their desperation mirrors the anguish of the African wilderness. The tragedies of the past, the pain of the present, and the uncertainty of the future. But to the visitors, these elephants appear majestic, a great spectacle to be admired and photographed. Tourist watching begins every morning at 6 a.m. The visitors then eagerly set out on the day's adventure. Buses and their occupants spend most of the day enveloped in clouds of choking dust as they jockey for positions in a race to find something worth photographing. Not an easy task, as now on any given day there are far more tourists than there are animals. Here, a solitary Grevy's zebra is able to encounter herds of tourists on their daily excursion across the park. The minibus has become by far the park's most common species. Perhaps this is the future. A herd of buses roaming to and fro across the desolate countryside in search of remnants from the past. But in time, even man gives up the unequal struggle and goes elsewhere. After all, why should he pay $200 a day to photograph a wasteland? This devastation is not the work of invading humans or their cattle. The culprit here is overpopulation. the overpopulation of the only animal on Earth to rival man in its ability to destroy an environment. The ecosystem in this reserve is threatened by the overpopulation of one species, the elephant. We are flying over the Kruger National Park in South Africa. Below, the land is devastated, the result of an elephant population that has outgrown its food supply. There has been little rain this season, so grass cover was poor. What there was has long since been eaten away. The elephants now depend entirely on trees and woodland to satisfy their huge appetites. A good indicator of the situation here is these mutilated baobab trees. Some have been here for over 500 years. This year, the elephants devoured many of the ancient trees, not because their appetites have increased, only their numbers. The Kruger elephants once roamed far beyond the borders of this park. Now they have been fenced off from their traditional range to protect them from hostile man. This high-voltage electric fence blocks any attempt by the elephants to reach the outside world. Agriculture has sprung up on other borders, and it has become as much a barrier as the fences. The Kruger Park is now an ecological island. It has been surrounded by a sea of human encroachment. The Kruger is one of the largest game reserves in Africa, but even this 12,000 square mile reserve is only a fraction of the elephant's traditional range, and as their numbers grow, so their chances of survival diminish. Nature is not responsible for the elephant's unnatural confinement. Man is, and man alone can solve the problem he has created. If the population is not reduced, the fast-growing elephant numbers will further destroy the park's ecosystem. As food becomes increasingly scarce, not only the elephant, but many other species will be cut down by mounting starvation. Eventually, there would be only a few animals left, struggling in a shattered ecosystem. Knowing the alternatives, the Kruger Park's management is forced to intervene. Population control is a sad but necessary part of successful wildlife management programs. It is man's way of keeping the numbers of animals in balance with the ecosystem. The management policy at this park is to assess and regulate the elephant population. This year, 7,000 elephants were considered to be the optimum carrying capacity of the park. There were 7,450 elephants in the park, so 450 elephants are killed this season. The laws of profit and loss apply here almost as vigorously as the laws of nature. Over the years, elephant harvesting at Kruger has become not only necessary, but profitable. The paradox is that without this game reserve,